It's time for a second scoop of ice cream. It's Speedball II on Amigos, everything Amiga. Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Speedball II.
Oh yeah, man. Oh.
Now, Aaron, you've been to professional wrestling before.
Oh, a few times, yeah.
You've been to see the Harlem Globetrotters.
No, I've seen them on TV.
Oh, you've never been down to Huntington Civic
I don't make
Arena.
Globetrotter money. What are you talking about? Those guys get to pay.
Now, here's my question for you. Have you ever been to see live roller derby?
I have. Yes, I have. Many times, actually.
When you go to see roller derby, is it kind of like going to see wrestling? Do they have good food there? How are the concessions?
Well, here's the problem with live roller derby, and the problem is this: if you ever watch, do other countries even know what roller derby is?
You might want to explain.
Roller derby is a game
Entertainment
that two teams of roller skaters play on a round banked track. Okay, sort of like think speed skating. But it's a roller rink, it's banked, and it's a banked track. And the way you play it is, there's a guy called a jammer on each team. They have these special colored helmets, and their goal is to lap the other team as many times as they can. And when they get to the point where they want to stop, they do this thing here, and that which is put your hands to your side, that calls off the jam. All right?
Really?
That's how you didn't know that, did
No.
you? And so the other members of the team, opposing team, try to keep that skater from skating past them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of violent. Now, here's the thing about it is, on TV, it was real popular in the 60s. It was sort of like bowling was.
Mm-hmm.
And it had its peak, and it slowly fell off. It didn't, unlike wrestling, it didn't last. I think part of the reason is you can't just go to any place and put up a banked track.
Right, it's tough.
And the problem is, banked tracks existed in the 60s and 50s, like all over the place.
For what reason?
Because people just skated on them.
Okay.
They were just because it was just people skated on them. But most places, in fact, I've never been to a place that had a bank track ever. And so what you have when you don't have a bank track are just people skating around a flat track, and that takes a lot of fun away.
Roller
from
derby is always on a bank track. You can't have.
Well, no,
roller
you
derby.
can't have it. And the ones I've seen live were all in flat tracks.
Okay, but that's no good.
We've got the Kanawha, is it the Charleston Chemical Girls or Kanawha Valley Chemical Girls based out of Charleston. And then there's it sort of had a second life in Texas. There was a big team of chicks in Texas. It's mostly roller derby now is all women. Because back in the old days, there would be one team there'd be one team, like let's say the T-Birds, and they would have a chick squad, a dude squad, each team. And then the others, and then you would travel, just like a baseball game.
Right.
But yeah, seeing it live, it was disappointing.
Now, roller derby, it's all a work, right?
It all was a work. When I saw it on TV and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Locally, I would assume it's still a work. I've only seen a few matches locally, but I mean,
how do you think you call spots in roller derby?
Well, it's not like wrestling where it gets real complicated. You know, in old roller derby, it was pretty complicated, and you also had world-class roller skaters out there too, and they would take horrible bumps because you got to think if you go over the rails of a bank track, you fall to the floor and you're 10 foot off the ground. So you had these real skilled skaters. When I was watching, I had these guys called the Jackson Brothers. These guys are super duper skilled at taking bumps and stuff. The chicks were too. They'd take these flat back bumps on the skating surface, which would hurt. You know, think about it. Plus, you're out there wearing heavy metal skates. You could get ran over. Fingers get ran over. You can just get somebody kick you upside the head with them. And so it was dangerous. I'd say it's way more dangerous than wrestling.
Now, were there superstars? I mean, who was the Ron Simmons of roller derby?
Oh man, you know the names that stick out to me. There was a manager of a team, the evil team in the league that I watched. Her name was Miss Georgia Haas. She was super evil. I mean, she was like the equivalent of like a Bobby Heenan or something. They had there was a British manager, and there was a slobby sort of a Captain Lil Bando style manager, and then the T-Birds had I think his name was it was a little old guy that was a former skater. So a lot of the old skaters would come back and be the good guy refs. You know, Hose would kill me because he remembers all these guys' names. But it was that's how they sort of recycled in their old heroes from back in the day. They would come in to be the good guys, and some of the evil skaters would come back and be the bad guy coaches. You know, but it was pretty much a lot like, it was sort of like team-based wrestling with like one evil manager, and all the bad guys would cheat. You know, so
the reason why I bring this up is,
I was wondering.
Speedball 2 is sort of like, they kind of bill it as the sport of the future. You know, it's something that takes place. Were people billing rollerball and its sort of violent tendencies as the sport of the future at the time?
Well, roller derby had been around for a long time, and then it went away for a while, and then they tried to bring it back in, like, I want to say it was the late 80s, with this thing called roller games. And you may remember that they had video games based on it, and it had a pinball machine.
I remember
and the difference on this was a bank track with a figure 8 and a jump built into it. So this was a custom track that for TV. And I remember on the very first episode, Debbie Harry sang.
Really?
Like, she was on there. So that was a pretty big... That was a
Amiga connection.
Yeah. Well, I never thought of that. But yeah, I guess you're right. It didn't make it. You know, I enjoyed it.
How do you go over the jump?
It's like a ramp like this. It's like a big gap. You just go over it. Yeah.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah. It's a dangerous sport. I mean, it was tough. It's tough on your body.
I wonder if any of those episodes are on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna have to check that
Roller
out.
Games was a syndicated show. I would say it was a moderate hit, but it didn't last. I don't think it went more than a season. It would probably be pretty expensive to produce, and I think it was an all or nothing sort of affair. They just ran out of cash, you know. But it was remember when American Gladiators was a big deal. This was in that same kind of era. Glow, that kind of stuff. That syndicated shows.
That late '80s type time.
You know, Speedball. I mentioned this on the first show we did, but this Speedball reminds me of this sport that was on the old Battlestar Galactica show. It was sort of like handball, except on the show you had two teams. And you had goals built into the wall like circles, sort of like Speedball, except Speedball has the open wall, but these had holes, and you sort of had to kind of slam dunk the ball through it.
Right.
But it was sort of a violent handball sort of affair. It was kind of like this in a way. That's the closest thing I can come up with for a Speedball type game.
Well, before we get into more Speedball, Aaron, let's shift on over and talk about what's been going on this week in the world of Amiga news.
Amiga news.
Now, Aaron, it's been a busy week in the world of our favorite YouTube stars of the Amiga universe. And we're going to kick things off with this first video from Chris Edwards Restoration.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron, you watched this and I watched it, but I want to hear your thoughts on this thing first.
Well, I mean, listen. By the way, I've got an A500 with no video, so I found this pretty interesting. Listen, it's just Chris going through and trying to evaluate what was wrong with this thing. Now he ended up finding a cracked chip. They'll do it.
Yeah, the ROM.
By the way, the cracked chip will do it. But I mean, it's funny. Like I said, Chris in some ways reminds me of a far more competent me. Because that's sort of the way I like it. I'm very similar.
He's got one of these microscopes that can output to a TV screen, which I think is really cool.
I've got one of those at work.
That's awesome.
They're pretty cool.
And it's amazing the diagnostic tools that are built into the Amiga, because he starts this thing up and it's like green. That means something. ROM is bad. Red. This means something. And then he's jumping a thing with the thing. I don't really understand what.
When
that
you jump the thing with the other thing, you're doing something.
You're jumping.
You know, listen. I'll tell you from having done this in the past, when you've got a machine that has like a component that's cracked, all right, it's hard. Sometimes it's really difficult to find what's going on because you can't see it. There's no heat issue. That can be a tough nut, especially when it's something like a very small capacitor or a very small resistor, the real tiny ones, because you can't, even with the microscope, you can't tell, until you pull off that glue. So all you can do is just measure, And I watched him go through this. I don't know. There's something wrong with me, but I enjoy this sort of stuff.
What do you think about him using that bodge wire, going across the chip like that? You never did anything like that,
listen,
did you?
I'll bodge with the best of them. You don't want to know the stuff I've done, But I like it. I'm going to shout out 48K, too. The past couple of weeks, 48K has been diagnosing stuff on his Twitch show and resoldering stuff and just tinkering with boards. there's something fun to it. It's sort of educational.
The thing that I like about Chris is that he doesn't have a whole. He does give you different angles, gives you close-up views and stuff, but he's not jumping around. To me, it's relaxing.
It's not like WWF camera work.
Right,
50 jump cuts in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I like this. Good stuff. He also released another one this week. I think it was installing a math coprocessor. So that's something else you might want to check out if you're. You're already here, so check them both out. But yeah, good stuff. Always like Chris's stuff. Also like his cool little monitor there too.
Yeah, Flack's got one of those too.
Those are neat, aren't they?
Yeah.
What's the gimmick on that? Any idea? Is it LED something or another?
No, we don't. It's like it's designed to display pixel art.
It reminds me. It's like if someone brought a light bright to life.
Right.
Ooh,
right.
I'd rather have the light bright with that was alive. It's still pretty cool.
All right, Aaron. Our next video comes from our buddy Doug. 10-minute Amiga Retrocast, and he is upgrading his Amiga 500 from OCS to ECS. Now, I didn't even realize that 500s were OCS out of the box. I thought they were all ECS.
I don't think they're all OCS. In fact, I know they're not, but some are.
Mm-hmm.
This was another good video. I enjoyed this. Doug, is he the happiest guy? I think he's got, what's the crap they give you before you get your dental work done?
Joker juice.
Joker juice. He's having this pumped into his house. He's the happiest guy. Even when he hosed up that solder job, he's like, oh, screw it. Send him the break. Whoa! I was like, man, I'd like to have some of whatever he's on that's sent over here. But yeah, this is a very similar thing. And of course, the Tenmark's trademark is slowly guiding you through what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Here's this chip. Here's what it does. And here's this chip. And here's why we're taking this out. And this is exactly what he does. He shows you what chips to pop out.
The thing I thought was interesting about this is that he talks about if you look on the other side of the board, there's actually little holes in there so you can poke it from beneath. I'd never heard about that before.
Via holes?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't understand how circuit boards work.
I am one of those people.
When I worked at IBM, we had these things we built called GenRads. They were the test circuit boards.
GenRads?
GenRads. And there are test points all over these boards, and you would set the boards on top of this thing. They had a lid that would kind of smash the whole card down these pins that stick up out of this tester, and it would run a series of tests on the entire circuit, and it would compare resistances and what capacitance on the board on the computer to see if everything was working right. And if it found something, let's say you had a broken resistor or whatever, it would say like, okay, resistance A12 supposed to be 5.1K. We're getting infinite, and then okay, that one's probably broken. And so that's something a lot of boards have those test points for stuff like that. Among other reasons, you can test them with a meter. We were lucky to have that kind of technology at IBM when I was there. But yeah, this is a good video. Doug knows this stuff, of course. He talks about what he's doing, why he's doing it. Hey, he made the right call. And of course, being Doug, he has to go through a crazy video modes and stuff that I would never even do. But I like the circuit board part especially just to see what he was up to. Like I said, I never even thought to do that, to be honest with you. So I never had a inkling to mess with the 500 in that way. But it was interesting. Plus, if you're someone that needs to do that or hasn't done it, that would like to, it's right there for you. So good stuff. We love Doug.
Absolutely.
Doug should be at Boat Fest, by the way. Have we heard from Doug?
No. But
Come on,
we'll
Doug.
have to put out the clarion call again.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron, our next video comes from the one, the only, Ravi Abbott. And this is his ongoing series of Commodore history, Amiga history. This one is all about when Gateway owned Amiga. Now, Aaron, I told you that I've been consuming a lot of my YouTube content in audio mode lately in the car. And I was like, I'm gonna listen to this. We were talking about it in the car.
No.
And you were like, no, you need to watch this bad boy. And you were right.
Yeah,
you were right.
There's a sequence in this when Gateway. First of all, this is a great video. We love Ravi. We've always loved Ravi. He's always been a friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he's underrated for his documentary work. This stuff's gold.
100%.
Right?
100%. And I'll tell you why I love Ravi's documentaries. Because there are some people that you can tell, I mean, they're reading off something, and some people do a good job reading off a script. Ravi, he's doing all this stuff. He's winging it. He's just speaking from his own memory.
Yes, he's the everyman, except he's way more talented than every other man.
Yeah.
So the best part of this is when Gateway split the Amiga into a separate team. And they came up with all this crazy Amiga merch. And of course, they had to have the Amiga dance troupe, that's what I told Boat. I was like, because there's a part of this video that's so uncomfortable to hear and see it has to be experienced visually.
My favorite part is when they cut to the crowd.
because it's a bunch of like old white people, business, and they're just sitting there like they're going like this.
They don't know
There's
how
like
to
one
react.
woman, yay, this is great. Look at that young lady dance.
Yeah.
And one guy's like, oh yeah, he's looking kind of lecherous.
Yeah, lecherous is the word of the day.
But I mean, what was this?
How is this helping you sell computers?
I'm
Commodore?
convinced this is the only
What are we
way.
doing?
This is the only reason they bought Amiga. It's like, listen, we need a dance troupe.
I want some of that Amicola.
Yeah. It's funny because here's a little, at the beginning of this right here, they have a little, see these mouse pads? I've got a couple of these that David Z sent over.
Yeah.
So now I know where they came from. But yeah, this is great. And this is also the sad but stupid end of Amiga. You can't be too depressed about it because it went out in the stupidest way possible. But it's not really, I mean, it did get dancers, and stuff.
That's true.
He shows all those cockamamie, like, here's the Amiga's going to be this. It's going to be in something that sits like a radio. It's a toaster. It's all this crazy stuff. And it was none of that stuff.
It was none of it, yeah.
Because when Gateway, I like that the whole thing is just gold.
Yeah.
Don't listen to us. Go check it out. Ravi did a great job on this. It's great. And by the way, watch the whole thing. I mean, there are long gaps in there. Hey, I'm not saying it's no good, the Amiga Cola. I wonder what it tastes. The problem is Amiga Cola, it costs $700
right.
per can.
You definitely want the ECS version, too.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, we're moving on down the line, and this next story is on our Facebook page because this was the easiest way for me to post this.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, that was baffling to me.
So, Aaron, this is Amiga action from Basque Country, okay? Are you familiar with Basque Country?
Yeah, that was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. We're in Basque Country.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Except that not, because this is in Spain, okay?
All right.
And this is the 11th of February. The Euskal Retro Association organized the Basque tournament of the Commodore Amiga 500. This was seven players, members of the association and friends, met in Jofer, a bar in Bilbao. And it was a retro afternoon because before connecting the Amiga 500, they played the 2600 and ZX Spectrum. But here's the thing, Aaron. They played a bunch of games. They had a tournament, okay? They played Space Harrier, Mega Phoenix, and Paperboy.
Oh,
okay. So, of course, this is just one of these things. We're so happy now that kind of things are opening back up again, that we're having these in-person tournaments again. And so, check these guys. Look like they're having a good time.
Yeah.
And I think the guy, his name is Ergoitz or something like that. He has a very strange name. It's Egoitz. He sent me this report, and
I think it's cool when like your first name makes up the portion of your second name.
Right.
Like I can't get that. No one can pronounce my second name. They just give up.
They do.
So good for you, Ego. His name's Ego. Uh-oh. I knew I forgot to do something. Just ignore that.
I don't think the microphones have picked it up.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay, let's move on, Boat.
All right. So, and finally, Aaron, we have the Sega and Amiga magazine revival, the Retro Hour, Aaron, for this week.
Yes, I watched this earlier, and it was, or listened to it. I was in the car on the way back from Bath County today, and I enjoyed this. First of all, here's something else that I found amusing, and there's a full circle feeling. When we did episode 42, which was the first time we did Speedball II, we talked about this show called Retro Hour. I'm like, what's this show, Retro Hour? And I was like, that's pretty good. I kind of like it, And here we are all these years later. Of course, we've known Ravi and Dan have been part of Amigathon. Ravi, we've had him on the show.
Right.
We've had tons. I don't think we ever talked to Joe. I think that's the third guy's name. They had the third guy. But here they are back. They're still cooking. They're huge now. I mean, they're a big deal, huge deal. But I wanted to talk about this particular episode because it also had a couple of our buddies on it, didn't it, Boat?
That's right. The one, the only, Pixels at Dawn is featured on this show, talking about Amiga Addict magazine, as well as the founder and CEO of Amiga Addict Enterprises, Jonah Naylor. So definitely check the show out. Listen to their interview. Good stuff. And
I want to mention something that I didn't know this. Now you got the inside scoop on some of this stuff, but Pixels mentions that they're preparing to put Amiga Addict in actual newsstand.
Really? I was not aware of this.
And I mean, apparently, as far as I can tell, it's a done deal because he was talking about how they were going to have to make sure that they hit their deadlines and stuff. But I mean, that's a happening. So, and if you're in the UK and possibly, and maybe Pixels can shed some light on it somewhere down the line, but this could be something you could request at your newsstand, or they will just carry it.
Yeah,
that's a huge deal for those guys, and they've worked hard to put this thing together. In fact, Edwin says it's a done deal. It's 300 news agents. That's tremendous.
That's great.
That brings a tear to my eye. We've known Pixels for a long. We've known both those guys forever.
Yeah.
And when they started this venture, I mean, listen, you could say, I'm going to start a magazine. It's like saying, like, we're going to do a con. It seems like a good idea, but then you're like, holy crap, this is tons. It's way harder, actually. It's way harder to do a magazine. And then you get it off the ground, and it's like, well, you could make a magazine. It could be shiny, but also what's in it. It could be junk. Well, it's not.
Right.
Let's get all the best guys to write for it. Oh, bam, then you got something.
Let's put Amiga Bill on the cover.
Listen.
That's all you have to do.
That's all you got to do. And so, you have to do more, actually, lots more.
Oh, wait a minute. That's all I do. That's why pages would be blank.
That's why Boat magazine didn't take off.
Yeah.
It was a pamphlet, and about a third way down the editorial, it just trails off, and it was in your garbage can, and you'd sold the copier back to Amazon. Oh, man.
The end.
I like how we could bury you right here. You just laugh it off.
I do.
There you go, Boat. I think that's all we got news-wise this week.
All right. Well, Aaron, let's shanty on over.
That's another reason you don't have a magazine.
To talk about Retro Rewind.
Shanty? Is that even a verb?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I see shanty a lot.
But you just talk about Frank.
If you are an enthusiast of the Commodore 64 or the Amiga computer, and you need hardware, if you need software, if you need support for fixing your broken machines, there is no better place to go than RetroRewind.ca. I almost said .co.uk. That's their unannounced UK branch.
Yeah. Don't marry him to that yet.
We've been associated with Frank for going on a year and a half now, I believe.
Yeah.
And everybody that deals with him has nothing but good things to say about not only the quality of his work, but the quality of his service. He's very responsive. He's very forthcoming, especially with hardware repairs and things like that. He's an honest guy that really cares about the community. And he also cares about what's going on in the world right now, doesn't he, Aaron?
Yeah, he sure does. And we wanted to mention this as we got, because Frank sent us a note over asking about plugging this on the site. We were like, of course, please do it. And listen, no one here is oblivious to what's going on over in the Ukraine right now. Horrible situation. And in fact, me and Boat talked to this a while back. We're talking about how do we address this, and we sort of didn't mention it, not because we wanted to, not out of disrespect, just because we didn't want to. At the time, it was early on last week. We didn't know exactly what was going on, but it's anyway it goes. It's a humanitarian disaster. Yeah. All right, and Frank sent us a note, and he mentions from March 2nd through March 18th, 10% of all the sales at Retro Rewind will be donated to the Red Cross and the UNHRC to help refugees fleeing the violence in Ukraine, which I think's dandy. Listen, those folks can use every cent they can get. It's very charitable to Frank. Of course, Frank almost seems like he's always got some kind of charitable thing going on, which is outstanding because he's cutting into his own piece of the pie here.
Right.
I mean, it's not like it's good for you because you can buy stuff from Frank knowing you're getting a good quality product. You're going to get it fast. But you also can buy stuff knowing, like, hey, listen, part of my purchase is going to help people that are fleeing from a war zone that they had nothing to do with. And everyone can get behind that. We don't want to see women and children, young men, old men, anybody get caught in a war zone. And so I think it's dandy that Frank did this. I think it's outstanding, and it shows you the kind of vendor, the kind of person that he is up at Retro Rewind, Boat.
Absolutely.
I also want to mention, now this is takes a back seat to that first notion, but Frank also has got a Coco diagnostic chip cooking. So Boat mentioned the C64 and the Amiga. Let's not leave out our good friends over on the color computer, also supported by Retro Rewind. Aside from your Coco SDC, You can now get a diagnostic chip. Trust me, can't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are helpful, man. We were just talking about the Amigas built that diagnostics, and here's a little something for diagnosing the Coco. Coco's getting up there in years, too. You're going to be developing a lot of problems. It wouldn't, even if your Coco's working fine, it wouldn't be the worst that I put one of these on the shelf just in case you need it, Bo.
That's right.
So give Frank a shot over at RetroRewind.ca. We don't just endorse him. He's not just a paid advertiser. He's a good buddy of ours. He's going to be down here at Boat Fest as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't sit here and talk about him if we didn't believe in what he was up to.
Absolutely. And we appreciate Retro Rewind for sponsoring Amigos. Aaron, it's time to talk about Speedball II.
Oh, man. Here we go, Boat. Now, Boat, I know you've played this one before, and I'll tell you why. If you're watching this live right now, you're watching the game myself and Boat played at Amigos Live Stream 42, when we used to live stream all the games before the show. It's funny because we didn't actually do this show to video.
Right. So
we just live streamed it, but we didn't actually video the show, which is, I guess, the way we were doing it back in the day.
That's the way we were doing it.
Boat, God, we've done some weird things. Who knows? So let's talk about it. Of course, this is a rewind piece. This was originally covered way back in Everything Amiga Podcast 42.
That's right.
And we went video at, what, 50?
Yeah.
So this is
shortly before we went video.
You know, the funny thing is, I went back and listened to this show again, and we did this show directly after doing a public domain show. Just
really?
Like this. Isn't that crazy? Because we read a letter from the guy that did Hangar 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there you go.
Wow.
Okay. Well,
History repeats
itself. It is crazy. So this game, Speedball II Brutal Deluxe. It sounds like a very angry cheeseburger meal.
Yeah.
You
You remember the McDLT?
Yeah, they had the two gimmicks.
Hot side hot, cold side cold.
I didn't like that. Because for one thing, I don't like lettuce and tomato, but there's also that. But also, didn't that double pollute? That's why
that was the styrofoam nightmare.
The styrofoam was great, though. I mean, of course, it killed the earth. But,
right. Aside from that, it was awesome.
They were awesome little containers, you know. Anyway, Brutal Deluxe. That's what I was talking about. Released in 1990 on a single floppy disk, Bode, if you can believe it. Developed by your favorite developer, the Bitmap Brothers. Now, before you go off on one of your dumb guy rants, let me go over some of the stuff that they did. Cadaver, they did Gods, they did Magic Pockets. Of course, they did your favorite game, the old Chaos game.
Yeah.
They also did Speedball 1, of course, and Xenon 1 and 2. So it's just a pretty good games.
No, they did Chaos Engine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I just didn't say engine.
Okay, I just wanted to, they didn't do Chaos.
No.
Okay. The Spectrum.
There is no, they didn't do that.
I just want to make sure.
Do I have to pronounce the whole name of the game?
Maybe I'd forgotten.
Published by ImageWorks. I always remember ImageWorks because of the opening of Xenon 2, because their logo comes on with the helicopter sounds coming up, and then the music starts up. This game, no. What? You just make up music, don't you? No. So this game is a 1 or 2 player game. You've got the designer of this, Eric Matthews. He also designed Gods. By the way, you're going to see striking similarities in the graphics of this, which I'll get to in a minute, but to Chaos Engine 1 and 2. Anyway, Eric Matthews designed Gods, Cadaver. He went on to design Z. Remember Z when it was out? And he did this.
Z?
Yeah, just Z. It was like a horror game.
No, I don't.
This is not an Amiga game. It's going down the line. He kept going.
Okay.
He also was behind the SingStar games.
Oh,
he had
those
the
were
Wii.
very successful. Yeah.
The iToy games, which I've heard of those. Is that a PS?
That's when the PS3 had a webcam. That's the iToy.
And then he also was. Remember 24, the show. He
Yeah.
was behind he was designer of 24, the show, the game.
Okay.
And he did a ton of stuff. I didn't write it all down, but he did a ton. The coder on this was Robert Trevelyan, which we've heard his name before. The additional coding from Mike Montgomery, who worked on many of the same games. A lot of these people worked on the same stuff. Graphics, Dan Malone, who worked on Chaos Engine 1 and 2, as you can imagine, because this looks very similar to Chaos Engine. And the music on this, it's funny a lot. It's funny on the old show. We were like, boy, that Richard Joseph, he did a great job of music. Really? There's not a ton of music in this.
Well, this is the Amiga 101.
Right. Well, and number 2, he didn't do the music.
Oh.
He did the musical coding and sound effects, from what I read. The music was done by a band called Nation 12.
That sounds very.
I looked into Nation 12 because I knew you would say something, and I know you. So Nation 12 was basically a guy named John Fox, who was the original lead singer for the band Ultravox, which I've actually heard of that band.
I've heard of them, yeah. They might have even been from Sheffield.
Anyway, he was inspired in the underground house and acid music scenes of Detroit and London, according to the wiki.
That's my favorite genre.
And thus, Nation 12 was born in the early 90s. He released 2 12-inch singles, Remember and Electrofear.
Electrofear.
That's a cool, that should be a game. They should have used that. The first was a collaboration with Tim Simonin. I also saw that he had collaborated with Simon Rogers. I can't tell you how that all worked.
Well, it didn't work out.
Anyway, they were best known for the Bomb the Bass project.
Another Bitmap Brothers thing, right?
Yeah, they wrote the music for Speedball II and Gods, Into the Wonderful Wow.
Is that from the Gods?
Yeah, that was Gods. The very what do you mean? You know, the beginning of Gods?
I guess I never paused to listen.
Oh, this is why you didn't like Gods.
There's
you
words to the Gods theme?
Yeah, Into the Wonderful. It's right at the beginning when the game loads up. You hate God so much, you've probably never played it more than one time.
No, that's true.
Anyway, that's who that is. Get this. Fox also taught graphic arts and design course at Leeds Metropolitan University. So he's not some ham and egger.
Yeah.
You know, he's a professor type. So that's who Nation 12 was. I wanted to get in. Of course, the box art, which is we saw several different box art, so I can't confirm if this guy did one or both. But it's credited to a guy named Glenn Fabry. So there you go. This is ECS OCS. You can, and then we'll get into the CD32 version towards the end. This got ported to a million things. I couldn't believe how many ports this got.
I played most of these ports.
Oh, great! So that's great. That's great news. So it got converted to the Acorn Archimedes. Mm-hmm. By the way, we were marking out back in that episode about the Archimedes too. The Atari Falcon. Did you know?
I did not play the Atari Falcon version.
I just noticed that the ST, the C64. By the way, ST looks like it was the lead game version.
I think all of the Bitmap games, all the way up until almost the very end, were lead ported on ST or lead developed.
C64, the Game Boy Advance, PC, a Palm Top. The Sega Master System, the Mega Drive, and the PC versions even had EGA and VGA supports. There was a full Monty there, and there were a couple compilations, yada yada. So, Boat, having not played this, I'm assuming, have you picked this up since we covered it way back in episode 42?
Not before this week.
And so, give us your initial thoughts as this game boots up with that cool arch in the background and the music kicks on. What did you think? Were you getting fired up?
I was confused by the game options because,
what?
Most of the time it's like play a simple game, play a season, but it's like your options are knockout, league play, and like cup play.
It's not confusing though. I can explain everything to you.
Well, okay, but could you explain it before you read the docs?
Well, yes. Because I own the game.
Okay, so like when you see knockout, you immediately know what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, when I opened the box originally, maybe not.
That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, they assume you've got the docs.
No, they don't. They assume you pirated the game.
No, not these guys. They knew they were going to sell a ton. So let's just get into the menu. Blah blah blah. The game comes on.
Okay.
That music.
Yeah.
Hones in.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
It's good.
Yeah,
the game is very atmospheric. Everything about the opening to when you start the game and the players line up and you hear the roar of the crowd, the sounds. I think the overall kind of feeling you get is it puts you in the arena in this futuristic sport.
Yeah. So the backstory for this is interesting, and then we'll get to the menus and stuff because the backstory is sort of spelled out as you sit there to watch the opening screen. This is not a game where they put a bunch of like fancy graphics on the screen or video. They don't do any of that stuff. They just have a picture. They just play some words, and they don't give you the full story. So if you'll recall, Speedball 1 was around, and this picks up after the sport of Speedball has been banned for being too violent. Boat. Don't you hate that when that happens?
I was banned for being too violent.
Really?
No.
Not yet. This almost happened to UFC, by the way. So UFC could have been like this in a weird way.
Well, who was the guy that said they'll either come out in a coffin or a handbag?
I don't know.
What was that?
That's a good line. I'm not thinking here.
I always think about that with UFC.
So anyway, the sport went underground Okay.
Oh, so this is all. This takes place in an underground speedball arena.
Speedball League was founded in 2095. It had to go underground in 2105. Okay, and so basically, since it went underground, it like got 50 million times more violent.
Right.
Okay. I mean, ultra violent. I was reading some support documents that they kind of like promo stuff that they shipped out, and it was all records about how many guys in the league, the big players, where are they now? These guys that have killed all these people, and it played up the violent side of this game to the nines. These guys had the number of times people been killed and mutilated, all the crazy, bizarre weapons and cheats they were using to kill each other. This game was built around the concept that this new speedball is super duper violent, 10 times worse than the old one. Okay, that's the premise of the game. Okay, it sort of reminds me of the remember when NFL Blitz lost the license, so it just became Blitz the League,
right?
And the whole gimmick of Blitz the League was now they were just cheating, and it was real nasty. It's sort of like that.
I didn't like that game.
I didn't either. I thought it sucked.
Yeah.
So they dropped the ball on that. No pun intended. So since it's called Brutal Deluxe. All right, why? Well, because that's the team you control, Brutal Deluxe.
I think that's a stupid name.
Brutal Deluxe. I think it fits the what they were shooting for here. You see, this is a game of sort of a cyberpunky future. You know,
I just think Brutal Deluxe, like Deluxe, is just a weird word to use.
Well, I don't know.
Like they should have called them like the Brutal Squad.
Well,
or something like that.
I'm just saying. I think it's okay. I mean, I know what you mean, but that's what your team is. So. In this game, your team stinks. By the way, which is funny because you're Brutal Deluxe. I guess you get brutally killed the Deluxe style. So when you start the game up, you're given the options of you've got knockout, you've got cup, you've got I think tournaments one, and then you've also got practice. Mm-hmm. Okay, simple stuff. All right. The knockout is simply just go in there and play until you lose. That's all that is.
Okay.
And then cup and tournament, whatever those other two options are, those are basically just tournaments. One is just longer than the other one. And then practice is exactly what you think it is. It's just practice. So, and really, to get to the heart of the game, you sort of need to be able to play for a while. Okay. The problem is you have to be able to play for a while. Mm-hmm. And therein lies the problem with this. So let's talk about, before we get into the various modes, I mean, official, let's talk about the layout, look at the meat of the game here. Both mentioned it. This is an team arena game where you take a ball and at least from the surface, try to just put it in the opponent's goal.
This is ice hockey with you can use your hands.
Well, it's handball.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I know the rules of handball.
Well,
but this is exactly the rules of ice hockey, except you're throwing a tennis ball instead of shooting a puck.
Well, but unlike ice hockey, though, there's other ways to score, like tons of other ways, and so that's what makes the game different. Oh, that's one among the things that make it different. So you've got your two squads of guys. And the squads are set up sort of like you said, like a hockey squad. You've got your defenders, you've got your like center guys, and you've got the wing guys, then you've got your attack guys. Okay, and you've got a goalie. Okay, and each one of these guys have their own separate abilities, their ability scores. They take a certain amount of damage, and what have you. And so when you first start a round, the first thing you can do is go in the gym. You can spend a certain amount of money to crank up your abilities. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are tons of abilities in this. There's attack. There's speed. There's
thunder thighs.
There's throwing ability. There's aggression. Right, and each one of these areas that you enhance will enhance that certain element of that particular player. You can also choose, for convenience sake, to say, okay, I'm going to take everyone that's a defender and I'm going to crank up their speed. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to take everyone that's an attacker, I'm going to crank up their aggression. Mm-hmm. And so, so they've got them grouped so you can, for convenience purposes, that makes it easier to upgrade your guys. Mm-hmm. Or you can go through them individually and say, okay, I want my goalie to have this. I want my lineman to have this. And once you spent the amount of money you want to spend firing up your players, then it's time to put them in the arena and actually have the match.
Mm-hmm.
The match, of course, you're talking with the Amiga here. I played exclusively the non-CD32 version. I didn't play the CD32
I played
one.
the ECS OCS version most of the time.
Now, so of course you've got
if you're watching live right now, this is not that.
This is this. Well, I was going to say there's the differences are skin deep on these two versions, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, when you start play, you line up on either side of the ball shoots up in the air, and then you go. All right, and that's what happens after every score, goal score. You've got three buttons. I mean, you've got really three different types of throws, plus like a maneuver you do, right?
Three different types of throws.
Correct. If you tap the button, it's a little throw.
Right.
If you hit the button, it's kind of a bigger throw. If you hold the button, it's a long throw.
Oh, I didn't realize there were two different tap.
And
throws.
then there's also, when you're on defense, you can do like a slide attack which
like
is
a soccer slide tackle.
Which is that's exactly what it is. And then one of the guys gets up and complains he's crippled, and they throw the yellow card.
I'm crippled.
But this is basically how you play the game. Now, you move basically the closest guy to the ball. I will say one of the things that struck me is kind of it's tough to get used to is how you're automatically switched to these certain players.
Mm-hmm.
You almost initially when I started playing this, and I'd played this years ago. I hadn't played it. I don't think I'd played it hardly at all since me and you did it. I had the tendency to slide all over the place. I didn't have the ball, and the problem with that is the second you get the ball, you throw the ball away like an idiot.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got to trust the game to a certain extent to get you active when the play goes towards your next line of defenders. It's very much like hockey, like you said, and then you'll take control of him, and you can start the action up from right there. Now, there are two big goals on either side that you could throw the speedball through. That's how you get points. The arena's also got some additional stuff in it. You've got two little loops built into the wall that you can roll the ball through to increase your multiplier on scoring. You can also there's a hole on either side that you can throw like a Pac-Man hole. You throw it through one side, it comes out the other. And there are also stars that lined up on the wall. You've got stars, and your opponent's got stars. And when you hit those, you'll get points for that. And there's also a couple like raised discs that can be in the middle of the field. One of them you hit, and when the ball hits it, it comes back. It'll knock out the opposing player. And one of them would just straight up give you like 2 points. I think it is when you hit it over and over, which seemed great in practice. But boy, when you get into a real game, hitting that thing's no easy task.
Yeah.
So, with all that said, your thoughts on the rules and the way the game played, the sport, whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I like.
All right.
Okay, this game moves super fast. Okay, this is not TV sports basketball. This is the end. This is the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
And the games move fast. The games there's a timer that ticks down. And the games you can play a full game of this, I think, in about 3 minutes. Really.
I think it says here they're 90-second period. Okay. That sounds about right, yeah.
So, I like the fact that the games just don't last forever.
Yeah.
Okay? Because when you start this game, it's going to be difficult to win right away if you're playing a computer opponent. I think the graphics are good. I think that they're colorful. Even the ECS OCS version.
Yeah.
It's futuristic, so you're not going to expect everything to be super bright colors, but it's not all brown. I much preferred the color scheme here that I did to another Bitmap game.
It's almost like a battleship or something kind of color.
Yeah, it's like military. A lot of battleship.
It's like a bulkhead
gray,
look, and there's lots of bolts and stuff sticking out of the floor, so it looks like there was like a stripped out of steel or something.
Right, exactly. I thought that aside from the kind of things that you talked about where sometimes there are issues when you're switching between players or when you get the ball, you'll fire the ball off when you don't mean to.
Yeah.
These are things that are true, but you can get better at them.
Yes, I agree.
And one of the things that frustrates me is when there's something that's difficult and you try to get better at it and you can't feel yourself getting better. I felt myself getting better as I moved through the week this week with this game, which is important. Now, what I don't like about this game is that at times the action is just, it almost seems like it's too frantic. Sometimes I feel like this game would be better served if you could slow the speed down about 10%.
It has almost, it's not as bad as Kickoff 2.
Right.
But we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. I love the fact that there are these things. There are other things you can do with the ball besides score goals.
Yeah.
The ramp, the stars, and things like that. However, because the action is so frantic, it's very difficult for you to form any kind of strategy where you're going to try and do these things. Whenever I did the ramp or the stars, it was always by accident because I was always driving towards the goal. And the problem is the way that scoring works in this game. You get like 20 points when you score a goal. Do you know how do you have the scoring on your notes?
I don't think I had the individual.
It's something like that. But when you hit a star, you only get like 2 points. Okay, yeah, I see where it says there are 5 stars with 2 points apiece. So the stars are worth almost nothing, and you can waste. I mean, if you give up a goal just to hit a star, that's not good. That's not a good strategy. So I almost wish that the extra things that you could do maybe worth half as much as a goal, so you could make a sort of a different strategy other than scoring goals, and you could have competing strategies where one person was trying to score goals to win, another person was trying to hit stars to win. It's neat to have multiple paths to victory, and I feel like the game could have done a better job with that.
This game, it's funny, when I listened to our old review in episode 42, and my opinion changed a little bit from them, but not a whole lot. My biggest problem with this game is I wish that you had more screen space.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to complete passes or have any idea of formations or a strategy go down the court.
Let's be honest. Whenever you're passing, 90% of the time that you pass, it's a blind pass, and you hope there's a guy.
You're hoping you can get a guy there, and you can hit the button and jump up and get the ball.
Right.
And you mentioned TV Sports Basketball. I'll use that as an example. Yes, a much slower game, but when you cross the center line and now you've got the ball and you're driving, you can actually set picks.
Yeah.
You can set up plays. You can see where your other players are.
Yes.
Another problem I had on this was that you never necessarily know where you're at on the field because it all sort of looks the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to the point where you're like, I wish they had like a little radar or something on the side of the screen so you could at least say, okay, you're at the bottom of the court, you're at the top of the court. I could never tell like how close I was to my own goal half the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now I did get it. I've got better at it.
You can see that you do have yard markings.
Yeah, but the thing is that things are moving so fast. There's guys on them. I couldn't go by that. I would like to have some kind of physical. I wish the screen was just bigger.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned when we covered this the first time how cool it would be to have this played on like a vertical monitor, and it would.
That would be awesome.
You know what? Like what comes to mind is something like a cyber ball, where like you don't see the entire field, but you see a good chunk of it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great.
Yeah.
To have that kind of action on this because this feels almost claustrophobic. It's just this close to being claustrophobic. It's not too bad, but like it's getting there, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
It should be bigger. Something else that you'll do as you go through the game is you'll get power-ups. There'll be power-ups in there, better armor, faster. Some stuff will help you, some stuff will hurt you. Some stuff freezes your opponent. The stuff is so small, and I didn't play this. I played this on multiple TVs, including my big one, because I was like, okay, I can't see what I'm doing here. That stuff was so small, and you would come across it so quickly with so much chaos going on, you can't tell what's happening.
Right.
You could steer towards something. Okay, that looks like a chest plate.
Mm-hmm.
But you might get there, or you also might give up the goal.
Right.
I
mean, that's sort of the press your luck component of
this. But I mean, often, sometimes you can go do that, but often you would just run across stuff.
Right. Most of the time you run across stuff without meaning to get it in the first place. I do not like the stat system in this game. I think it's overly complicated for what it is.
It's very, very thorough.
Yeah, and for a game that plays, this is a reflective game. I mean, you have to have lightning quick reflexes to play this game well. This is not a game where I think you can truly tell the difference between whether you have a lot of these upgrades or not. Now, maybe if you're a superstar at this game and you win 50 or 60 games in a row and you can max out certain things, you can tell a difference. But like I actually won a game, and then I went and I upgraded my guys again, and I could not tell a difference between 2 upgrades and 1 upgrade.
It's funny. I played this a lot this week. Every spare moment I had to get back into the flow of it, and I would play and just get crushed. And unlike what you said early on, I didn't think I was getting any better. I just thought, I was like, man, this is frustrating. And I remember I bought this game years ago. I bought it at the store and brought it home, and I never really enjoyed it all that much because I was no good at it. And also, this is another game which is better with 2 players. We'll get to that in a minute. But this week, it took me, I was like, man, I may have to go in there and badmouth Speedball II when we review this thing, because I was really getting frustrated. And then something clicked where I started getting better at it, okay? But to what you said, I would always upgrade all my guys before I went into my first game playing Knockout. And so one time I thought, I'm not going to upgrade any of my guys. I'm going to keep my money and buy one of these high-priced players, because as you go through the game, you'll have the ability to replace your geeks with, like, named guys, right? Real guys, stars. And so I didn't spend any money. That was the first game I went out, and I crushed the opponent and won without touching any of my stats. Then I bought the best guy I could, upgraded my whole team. I went out and got murdered.
Yeah. I just don't think this is my personal opinion. I don't think that the stats matter that much, and it gets in the way of enjoying the game. What I would have rather had is get rid of the stats completely and use your money to buy better players and look at the stats of the better players. Have a draft, or have something like that. That to me makes more sense. And you need to make a bigger deal about what players are who. Like, you see little letters appear over the guys' names or something like that. But it's like, when you have a star player, you need to make him, like, make his helmet a different color or something like that, so you can try and get the ball to him if he's like your best scorer or something like that.
Well, I think the stats do matter. I don't agree with you there. But I think you have to, like, for example, I found a hint guide to help me mold a team. Okay? Because I didn't know what I was doing. And the things they suggested made sense. Give your goalie high intelligence, and give him a good throwing arm, and give your attackers a lot of aggression and strength. Makes sense. I pretty much followed the guide, okay? When I played, I didn't do any better, but I could tell the difference. Yeah. And so I think the stat angle, plus you're getting money to go to the gym and not only purchase new guys, but also upgrade your team, heal them, and that sort of thing. And I think that gives this game, I'm not going to say it's artificial depth, but I think it gives it depth that you wouldn't expect. They could have shipped this without that, all right?
Well, sure.
But I think that's some value they added into it. And for people that are into stat stuff like that, plus it does give you a basis for the game, because that's where your money's going,
To me, I am somebody that's firmly on, and when it comes to sports games, I'm firmly on the side of the arcade action. Mm-hmm. I want to get in and I want to start playing.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen them take the development time, take out all the stat stuff, and make a full slate of teams that you can choose from, each with different strengths and weaknesses. So instead of wasting your time trying to figure out this stat system that you're not even sure if it works or not to build a defensive, oriented team, maybe just play as the defensive-oriented team, the Dallas Mavericks of the Speedball world.
You want Cyberball 2097 is what you want.
Yeah.
Where the teams that are offensive, defensive, or well-balanced. But that's an arcade level of strategy. This is a home computer level.
Sure. And I'm just saying,
that's the difference.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why, obviously there's tons and tons of people that like this game.
Yeah.
I'm after something different.
Well, I do like. In fact, the more I played it this week, this is probably the most in love I've ever been with the game, because I had to sit down and really play with it. And some of the things the manual talks about, you can't even get into until you're like, it talks about killing your opponent, right? Not easy, and so it's tough. And so that's not even really an angle I used early on, because you can't. You've got to become better at what you're doing. You've got to have guys like, for example, if you have guys' aggression set up real high. Those guys, when you're not controlling them, they'll just go out and beat the crap out of the other team members, the other players. That's kind of cool. I like that. I like the fact that they bake that in there, but it's going to take more time than a week to come to grips with how the system works.
And here's the thing. For all the ink that is spilled in this manual about how incredibly violent this game is, this game's not that incredibly violent. If you're buying this thinking you're going to play some sort of gory game from the future, you're going to be disappointed.
It's funny you mentioned that on the 42nd show as well.
Really?
The exact same thing. And it is. I'd mentioned to you the promotional material I read about all these guys that named all these guys that killed all these people, and one guy that had all of his arms and legs ripped off. Just all this person. But really, you're right. That doesn't translate to what you're seeing on the screen. It's not nearly as graphically violent as you would think it would be.
I mean, this is about as graphically violent as any soccer game.
Yeah, it's not very. It doesn't match what you're reading. Now, I like the background and stuff to this, I like what I wouldn't have even bothered to even add that. I mean, I guess you got to kind of have to. Maybe they just did what they thought they could get away with for censorship reasons.
I don't think that's the case.
You know, I don't. But I mean, it is funny how graphic the descriptions and stuff are.
Mm-hmm.
And even when someone dies, it's not like they're ripped in half and their blood squirts up in the air.
This is what I think. I think that they knew that the magazine review guys were going to be reading the docs, in some cases more than they were playing the game, and they figured they would write that into the review, which would excite the adolescent audience of this game.
Well, I mean, listen, we've played some of these kind of sport arena games.
Mm-hmm.
We played a bunch of them on various systems.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably one of the best ones. I will say this. Futuristic sports.
This is, I mean, don't get me
wrong. For a home computer.
This is the best futuristic sports game on the Amiga.
I mean, if I was going to play something like this, I will say I also like that. I like Brutal Football. We played that.
I'll have to go back and play that again.
But listen, I mean, do I like this say better than like Cyberball? I like it better than Cyberball on the Amiga, but in terms of a game, I like a game like Cyberball better because I can see more of what's going on. There have been multiple revamps of this game over the years. In fact, there's one on Steam now, and I thought to myself, at some point in the future, you may have to see if this is any good, because if they've made certain small changes to these, you could have something that's really awesome. Because I will say, and we know this from having done it, this game, much like Kickstart 2 and Sensible Soccer, everything else, is way more fun with two people.
Yes.
We had a lot of fun playing this.
Absolutely.
And that's where that sort of frenetic, super speedy pace makes it kind of fun. You're laughing, you're having a good time.
You're having a good time.
And so that makes it a lot more fun. So as a two-player game, I enjoyed it a lot more. But as a one-player game, unlike yourself, I think the strategy elements add to the game. Now, it does take you out of the action, right? I mean, there's going to be a time I sat there after you get killed 3 or 4 times in a row, and you're on your 5th game. I'm back in the gym. Here we go again. At that point, you're just hitting upgrade all, and you don't think about it. You just kind of go out there and do your best. And if you don't sit there and learn the subtleties of the statistics, you're not gonna have as good a team, and that's the way it is. I should mention that the other options in the menu are to play tournaments and cups. It's just you in round robin tournaments against all the other teams. I think there's 15 other teams, I believe, in the league. There are a lot of players you can buy. That aspect's cool. Like I said, they added depth to a game that could have been very shallow, which I appreciated. I still like the game. I'm not burying the game, but it's got some fundamental issues that I wish that could have been addressed.
Well, speaking of the other versions of this game, Aaron, I had a chance to play what I believe to be almost every other version.
Oh, good. Yes, give us the shoot.
This is a game that surprisingly translates very well to almost every platform. I was not expecting good things from, say, the Game Boy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I was wondering about that one.
The Game Boy and the C64, primitive systems though they are, especially C64, it is, the game plays just as fast as it does on the Amiga.
Oh, yeah?
Is the color palette there? No, especially not on the Game Boy, of course. But, I mean, the spirit of the game is intact. The speed of the game is there. The sound of the game is not there on the other versions. The Amiga trumps everything in terms of, it's the only version that has the ice cream. It's the only version that has the crowd noise. Even the Genesis version does not have that. The ST version does not have that. The Genesis version was actually, I believe it was a straight port of the ST version. The game plays a little bit slower on the Genesis, which can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your perspective. But the sound effects are just the dirt worst. They're the dirt worst.
It's funny though, for a game that's this is Nation 12 to the music, right? Really, you don't have a whole lot of music in this game.
It's your classic. This is the title track. Listen to it and enjoy it, and then never hear it.
And there's
again.
little ditties in there. But there's nothing. When you win or lose.
And so the version that is probably the worst is the Game Boy Advance version.
Really?
Okay.
How did they botch that after getting the Game Boy right?
Okay, I want you to picture take a Game Boy size screen and overlay it on top of this screen, and that's how much playfield you see.
Oh, geez, they didn't rescale it.
No, it's ultra wide. It's wide and not tall, and you see even less. So that's
would have been great a DS version of this. Now that you got something there, that would not be nice. Yeah.
So, but I enjoyed playing all these different versions.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see, and none of the versions were bad.
Yeah.
None of the versions were bad.
You can see here, if you're watching at home, I've put up the comparison between the AGA and the non-AGA versions of this. I read, it's funny, I looked on Lemon to see what people thought about this game. A lot of people hate the AGA version of it.
Well, it's your classic AGA missed opportunity.
Here we go.
I mean, you take the most disappointing chipset that's ever been devised, and you throw a Speedball on it, and that's what you get.
Well, I think they didn't like they retweet graphics with the enhanced colors. They didn't like the color changes.
It is more garish. I mean, I'll give it that.
It's but I mean, I think people got used to. For one thing, this is one game where muted color sort of works.
Absolutely,
because of the what's going on and the story and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one thing I didn't like. I went through and listened to we were talking about the lack of sound. The CD32 has music. But they got rid of the title track, and it doesn't have the ice cream vendor.
What are we doing?
What the heck was that?
Yeah.
How do you get rid of that guy?
Right.
You know, he's
it's
super
the most
famous.
iconic thing from the game.
Yeah. So it's funny that but I think it looks okay. You know, I really, but I mean,
yeah. I mean, I'll take. I'm different, but I'll take the CD32 version over the ACS or ECS OCS because I like color. You know, more colors the better. But I can understand the complaint. And this is a game, like you said, where the muted colors don't take anything away because of the theme.
What I would like to have seen, I mean, you're not going to get this, and we both know why, but I would like, if you're going to do a version of this for AGA, how about giving us a higher res where we can have a more play field, which of course you're not going to do it because no one was doing anything like that. No. They did it was the quickest thing they could get out the door to release. But, you know, I will say this. If you have a CD32, you could get this, okay. But if you don't feel like, man, I'm missing out because you're not.
Right.
It's not a whole lot different visually, and I didn't read there was any differences in any way except for the visuals and the audio. So there you go. Did we get any Discord action on this one, Mr. Bode?
Let me see. I think we did get a couple reviews in the old Discord. Let's see. We're going to start things off with Alien Breeder. Alien Breeder says, Speedball II has a strong spot in my heart. It was one of those games that did a few things. It was amazing. One, it was amazing looking for the time. The detailed graphics and sound were fantastic and unlike anything out at the time. Two, it was one of those, oh yeah, find something that looks like this on your NES games. Number three, it was actually a good game. Now I must admit...
Interesting criteria.
I must admit my version of Speedball 2 was a liberated copy.
No.
So my friends and I had no instructions, so we had no clue what to do in all the menus, so we missed out on a lot, but we definitely had fun. Years later, when emulation became easier, this was one of the first games I fired up, and it was still as great as I remember. Overall, I give this an 8.5. For me, the CD32 version is my favorite. Despite not having the ice cream shoutouts, I like the gold ball and coins, as well as the more varied colors on the gaming field. I wish they had really taken advantage of AGA graphics and the extra storage to do more, as most of it is still the OCS ECS graphics. Lord Soup writes, replay, ice cream, 9 out of 10. Barkbit writes,
that was quick.
Together with Cincy, one of the few sports games I enjoy. The fluid gameplay, the graphics, the sounds, it all comes together very well. Of course, it's better with a buddy, but the one-player game is all right too. 8 out of 10.
You like this better than Cincy or less?
Less.
I do too. And we would have thought that. I like the plot and stuff a lot, and I like everything about it except but Cincy, you can actually control your guys.
And you see so much more of the field.
Yeah, you could do a lot more in Cincy than you can in this.
David Hearn Ryder writes, Speedball 2 is brutal fun. Bashing other players is encouraged, and while I enjoyed it more for an instant hit, there was a league to play through if you wanted. I kept coming back to it. The graphics and sound were tops, and the little shortcuts gave it an extra dimension. It was rugby league on crack, and it was beautiful. I rate it 9 out of 10 elbows to the jaw.
Very good.
Pajako6502 writes, It's been a while, and I was looking forward to it. However, I found the controls a little clunky and difficult to get back into easily. A larger playfield and more players make it difficult to know where your teammates are, and for a game where passing is important, lobbing the ball and hoping for the best is trying at times. I would often run past the ball and fail to pick it up. Okay, I suck, but it was annoying.
Yeah.
Smaller goals make scoring harder than Speedball, I guess Speedball 1, and I found the only reliable way to score was to take out the goalie and throw the ball in at close range. The game has some nice additions with player upgrades and extra ways of scoring. Graphics and sound nicely show off the Amiga's capabilities. I do actually prefer the music for the first game, though. Wasn't quite the game I remember, but I still had fun and swore a lot. 8 out of 10. And finally, Batman writes, I remember picking up my Amiga 600 in 1992. Yes, I was its fan, and Speedball II was my first game for it all, and I remember playing the living daylights out of it. An absolute treat to the eyes and ears, a fantastically addictive game that still holds up to this day. Just avoid that dodgy PlayStation reboot. 9 out of 10.
I played that reboot, by the way. It was not good. You know, he mentioned something there about running past the ball a lot. I mean, that's part of it. And also he mentioned about getting the ball in the goal.
Yeah.
Yes, knocking out the goalie. It is satisfying. The one thing you can do in this is when when you're down at the goal, you could sort of work the ball around, and you can slip it past them.
Yeah.
But often, listen, for every one time I did that, I scored it myself 10 times. Something else that irritated me is like you would accidentally skip. Stuff happened too quick. You'd skip replays.
Yep.
You'd accidentally skip all that stuff, and you would just like, that's
because
depressing.
you're so used to just firing that button as fast as you can. Yeah.
I did look this up to see how it scored. It did very well, as you can imagine. The Lemon reviews on the disc version is 8.77. CD32 version scored an 8.22 with the folks, so it went down. The disc version was quite popular. It was rated high in the 90s by pretty much every magazine, and its cumulative score was a 91. It also got tons and tons and tons and tons of praise. It was named at various times. It's been in the top 3 or 4 of the best games of all time in Amiga Power. It won the old Golden Joystick Award, which we got to have that. Best soundtrack, by the way. That's kind of.
I mean, if you think about this game, 1991. I mean, Alien Breeder's right. I mean, this is of course before the launch of the Super Nintendo. The Mega Drive was still sort of getting its feet. There was nothing that looked this good and played this fast as far as a sports game on pretty much any system. So I can see this would definitely be one of those titles that you could show off to people and say, listen, this is the power of the Amiga.
By the way, if you're interested in trying any of the new versions, there was a Speedball 2100 on the PlayStation. Horrible. I can tell you that right now. I did play that on stream once. There's a Speedball 2 Brutal Deluxe 2007 that was released on the Xbox Live Arcade. Speedball 2 Tournament, which I believe is still on Steam. That's what I'm going to check out. I haven't heard anything about it. And 2011, Speedball 2 Evolution was an iOS and Mac game. You can look into that, Bode.
Yeah.
Speedball 2 HD for the PC was released. This was developed by Vivid Games and directed by John Hare. We know him. This is in 2013 on Steam. So there may be 2 on Steam right now, ready to go if you feel froggy. If they've got online massive multiplayer play, as in you get to play 16 people at once or whatever, sign me up. Now that would be fun.
That would be awesome.
That would be a good time. Cool. I looked this up on eBay. It's funny, when I looked this up on eBay in the last episode, and I had the exact same experience this time around. The pricing on this is really all over the map. I've seen, I saw a complete box set of this sell for $9. I saw the discs selling between $10 and $20 a couple times. I saw a complete in box sell for $54, and if you want the CD32 version, good luck, because the 2 people I saw selling them, there were none sold, but they were selling them for $115 and $250 dollar bill, Bode. So there you go. Any final thoughts on the old Speedball 2? What do you think between now and when we did it last?
Oh,
anything changed for you?
Yeah, I got a lot less hair.
Well, to be fair, you cut the hair. I don't think you were going to lose it anymore.
It all didn't get cut.
Give me that.
This is one of the great titles for the Amiga, without question. Despite its flaws, this is, if you have 20 games that you want to show off, why was the Amiga popular? This is one of those 20 games.
This is the one you break out at the party.
Yep.
It's got all the little touches I like, including the stuff in the crowd. Even when the ball flies up at the beginning, you can see the initials of the game on the ball when it's its apex.
Yep.
There are a lot of little touches. I just wish they would have. There's a few things I would have done differently. Mostly, my biggest problem is just the perspective. You need a wider perspective. Hopefully, the new versions do that. Hey, HD.
Yeah.
That might work.
There you go. All right, Aaron, let's head on over to the YouTube channel and see what's been going on over there.
All right, Boaster. So, we'll start off with myself and the Brent, as we always do. This time, I'll have to say, Boat, this is a Hermsky joint this week. When we look at the Acetronics MPU 1000. All right, everyone loves that one.
Yeah.
This was another fun one because it was neat to go down into the mystery hole to try to figure out what the heck this thing was. And it turns out this thing had about 1 million names, and the processor was in about 1 million different things.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about this.
Did you hear this one?
Of course.
Oh,
I
don't know.
You and Brent had an interesting discussion about your thoughts on the multiple variations on the same cart.
Oh yeah, Brent went bananas on that.
And
that idiot.
I think that I'm on board with you.
Oh, duh.
Because if this was your only game, say Space Invaders was your only game for the 2600.
Yeah.
If you have those different variations, you're not going to think, oh man, some of these variations are kind of cheap and useless. You're going to think, hey, this is something else I can do with this game.
Well, to fill people that didn't listen to it yet or haven't or aren't going to, we had a discussion about game variations on the same card, i.e. Atari 2600 having like 101 variations of asteroids or Space Invaders. And Brent talking about how much he hated that, which I've never heard anyone be that dumb. But part of it, well, that's true, because that's not true, because I've worked with Brent for years. But the fact of the matter is, if you weren't there, I don't think you could fully understand how appreciative you are of these. It made stuff like something simple like Space Invaders so much more fun. You've got shields, no shields, invisible invaders, flashing invaders, fast, slow, blah, blah, all this stuff. It gave the game a lot more appeal because there's a lot more longevity to it.
A lot more replay value.
This streams from those original Pong systems where they did basically the same thing.
Right.
You want one paddle, two paddles, two balls. The paddles are slow. The ball's slow. It seems, I know it maybe gets redundant or a pain in the butt to flip through all the selects, but I mean, I don't think people like Brent, I mean, even dumb people know that he's an idiot. That was just a stupid statement. I couldn't believe I was having this conversation. So thank God you're on my side.
I'm on your side on this one.
Anyway, check it out. That was the MPU 1000. Hermsky could double dip this because we got another one of his coming up this week, Boat. So that should be a lot of fun. So that's ARG Presents. Join us every Sunday, 10 a.m. We have a good time. Boat there, Boat. Oh man, here we go, Boat. Ask the Amigos. I couldn't believe you picked this as the title line here. Did you ever get better at flashlight? When it's clearly the title should have been about bear baiting. It's hard to say.
I wasn't even sure where you were going with that. I thought you'd lost your mind.
A good chunk of the show was devoted to our conversation about baiting bears. And I thought that was more prominent.
That might have been flagged by YouTube.
What, you can't talk? That's a taboo subject to bait a bear? I'm not for it, I'm against it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
I'm rooting for the bear. What did you think of this one?
Well, you're going to have to watch and find out for yourself.
You don't remember anything about it, do you?
No, I was highly inebriated.
No, you weren't. You weren't drunk at all. You're complaining about the hair, the memories, what goes.
Yeah, that's
Listen,
true.
I had a great time on this ass. It's so much better when we're together to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And this
especially
was
with Nikki Boom right behind us.
Yeah.
Nothing livens up the conversation like that scary
theoretically,
clown Trump character.
We probably could have changed that. I thought about that as I went back. I was like, well, what the heck? But yeah, we had a good time on this one, Bo. I always enjoy these. So ask the Amigos. Check this out. By the way, you can also listen to it in podcast form.
Yeah.
Since some people are asking about that. Okay. Next on the docket here. Oh, man. This is all you, the Boat. What do you got here?
So, Aaron, as we know, it is now the month of March. And that means Marcintosh, the yearly celebration of your favorite platform, the Macintosh. Aaron, what's your favorite story of working on a Mac back in the day when you were working for the man in Charleston?
Well, my favorite story is when I called up the person and said, listen, pick this thing up. I ain't touching it. Get it out. I'm not taking out 4 million microscopic screws.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Well, for those of you that enjoy a bit of classic Mac action and you don't have an old machine laying around, you might want to check out the emulation solution for the Macintosh. And it's not quite as easy as it is on the Amiga or other platforms, but it's not insurmountably difficult either. I take you through on this video in less than 10 minutes. I take you from nothing to a fully functional Mac OS 8.1 setup. It's OS 8.1 because that's the last version of Mac OS to run on the 68K chipset. So this is basically emulating a very powerful Quadra machine, which is one of the last 68K tower. Very expensive these days on eBay.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So If you want to fire up, and I fire up Oids, that was sort of the genesis of this. Was
Yeah,
trying
tell
to play,
that story.
Yeah, trying to play. I went through so much rigmarole on the physical Mac trying to get Oids running. I was like, there has to be a better way.
Here's my question: harder to run Oids on this Mac or on the ST? Because that was no easy feat either. Hit this, hold this button.
Right.
Now use your big toe to hit this.
Wait 10 seconds. If it starts flashing, it's okay. Just let it ride.
Yeah, no kidding. Listen, I'm all for Mac emulation. Anything that gets rid of the physical Mac, I'm okay with.
There you go. So happy Marcintosh, everyone.
You mean?
All right, Aaron, moving on.
So stupid. What happened to, remember the Tandy one? Did anybody celebrate Septandy this year?
I did. I celebrate Septandy all year round.
I know you do. Next on the docket here, holy smokes! I think we were both
on board with
this.
We
were both in a room when everyone's favorite, almost like a kind of a nutty uncle. That's what he reminds me of.
Is that what he reminds you of?
Good old Jack Flack.
There's the Chris Edwards board behind me.
Yeah,
too.
everybody's got one of those. And we've got this wacky thing. But the Flaxter was in rare form this time around when he cranked up a little Space Taxi boat. Now, we both like Space Taxi,
I love Space Taxi.
This was the original wacky taxi gimmick.
Let me rephrase that. I love Space Taxi on the C64.
Yeah.
Space Taxi on the Amiga, no good.
I thought it was okay. It wasn't the best, but Space Taxi, you can't beat the original. Of course, we liked UGG too. Everybody hated that.
That's true.
Didn't they get voted like worst game?
People are weird.
How come everyone loves Space Taxi, but UGG's got tons more depth than Space Taxi?
It's way better.
But all that said, this was the Flaxter playing a little Space Taxi. I believe Space Taxi will be the next subject of Sprite Castle.
Oh, I can't
comes
wait for
out.
that.
If I'm not mistaken, Flack, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then he took it to the next level, boat, as one must do. Well, first he showed a crazy demo here. It's an arcade demo. I can't recall the fella's name that made this. It's pretty good.
Look at that.
But then it was time for a little Offspring and some crazy taxi on the GameCube, on the Wii, by the way. It was
what? On the GameCube, on the Wii?
Yeah, it's the GameCube version of Space Taxi, Crazy Taxi, that he played with the GameCube emulation or whatever you call it.
Dolphin?
Simulation. No, on the Wii.
On the Wii.
You know, the Wii plays GameCube games.
I always forget that it does.
Yeah, because why would you? There's nothing really to play. But now I'm going to get buried by the GameCube people. Sorry, the GameCube didn't. It was okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on. It's not Dreamcast. Anyway, he plays a little Crazy Taxi, which I played this on the Dreamcast, big time, and on the Xbox.
That's where I played this mostly on the Dreamcast.
Going back to this game. I mean, it's sort of a fun game, but I mean, you can't really do that well at it. Have you ever got anything above a Class C license?
No. It's one of those games, but you play it for 10 or 15 minutes and you have a good time, then you put it away.
Yeah, you got the music going.
Yeah.
Because I know you love the Offspring.
Well, I turn the music off.
Boy, you're the only one.
But I love the fact that there's real world stuff. There's like KFC and stuff like that.
They took that out of some of the later releases.
I loved all that stuff.
Yeah, I did too. It's funny, and that's in-game advertising. That's the kind we like realistic, like pole position. So anyway, check that out. That was the old Sprite Castle place, the Flaxter. Coming out. So, by the way, we should also plug, we didn't plug it last week, his arcade show dropped. I believe it dropped this week.
Yeah,
Cactus Flax. We talked about it before the show, which was Karate Champ, which I think he streamed last week. Good show. Really enjoyed that.
Very good.
And also his stories about how he obtained it and all the stuff he found out about it. It's a secret. Last and certainly not least, oh my! I'm just seeing what this is for the first time.
Frodo's a man after my own heart with this
Holy smokes!
Look
Modern,
at that shirt too.
Old school. He's the only one that's got one of those.
Me and Frodo.
I gotta look at this. Modern homebrew for the NES. Gutsy.
Well, listen. After you get done watching Flax C64 stream and you want to check out a real gaming platform, you might want to skip this video.
Wait a minute, aren't you the big... Oh, wow.
Yeah. Modern homebrew games on the NES. Not looking so good.
Only Frodo has the patience to devote 4 hours to this.
Not looking so good.
Only Frodo can lay down and say, I'm going to devote 4 hours of my life to modern NES homebrew.
It might be possible that the C64 homebrew scene a little bit better developed than
Holy... What is going on here? Have you tried any of these?
No. I was excited until you started showing them. Then I became less so.
Remember that MPU 1000 show I just did? Clearly, these games are derived from this.
Right.
He gave a lot of time to that tapeworm game.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't?
Listen, we don't want to judge, but you need to go watch this just give Frodo some money.
Let it wash over you.
Send him something.
Yeah.
Good job, Frodo. You are. I wish I was half that patient. I can't even get over that 4 hours of this.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'd like to watch this just for the comedy value of it, Boat. That's all we've got there, Boat. Another wacky week of video entertainment. You got anything else in the site update zone?
Pixel Guide In released a new episode.
They did.
Just dropped last
I heard
week.
it. I did hear that.
So you can check out. It's Tim is talking about. It's Tim. Tim has his own corner. There's some Amiga talk in there. Tea time with Tim.
Yeah.
And so make sure you check out Cody and Eric and Tim. You can find that on the Pixel Guide In podcast feed or the Amigos Retro Gaming Network podcast feed, where you get all our shows.
You know, I listened to that show this week.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I sent you a message about their quiz.
Mm-hmm.
I've already sent them a message about the quiz because I was killing this quiz. But there were some of the questions they asked that they didn't even know the exact answer to, which made that even better.
Yeah.
That's when it's a lot more fun. Fun for me. So I enjoyed the quiz. Also, they go over their recent acquisitions. And they've got some new crazy thing every month. Mm-hmm. Tons of it.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of super retro mansion do they live in? Where they stack all this stuff?
I don't know. Cody got a TurboGrafx, some sort of.
No, he got the Japan one,
right.
I think. And it's just another. They throw that on the pile of the other crazy stuff he's got.
Goodness.
He just got a new house though, so I'm sure he's got a separate, smaller house for his retro collection.
He actually didn't sell his older house. That's just devoted to where the games go.
I wish I could do that, but I'd have to climb up the Mud Mountain to get my stuff. That'd be rough.
All right, Aaron. Last week, as you know, there was no Patreon song, and the world cried out in fury. So
tell him what I said. You can tell him.
You said, Boat, that's unacceptable.
I said, where's the Patreon song, Boat? That's your thing.
Right.
And Boat was like, I'm beat down. Yeah. I was like, you're going to get beat down more.
That's right.
You're going to produce these things on demand.
So I acquiesced to your wishes.
Wait a minute. It just occurred to me. I begged you to do a Patreon song. I'm an idiot. What the hell was I thinking?
So, if you know the answer to this week's Patreon song, send me an email at john@amigospodcast.com, and I will announce you as a winner on next week's show.
And don't announce it in the chat.
Don't put it in the chat.
Otherwise, Bo will come to your house and serenade you in person. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Alarm Albert Kemp, we like what we like, Mr. Chip, Peter Price, Herman V. Wonderly Chesum, Mark Richardson, David Hearn, Ram OK, Rom OK, David Terrace, Jude Carlos, Matthew Mobius, the Phantom Magnus, Seth Yates, Alice Hoofine, Christian Ritzel, Ravensy, George Rosansky, The Amiga Show, Daniel Crabtree, Super Family King, Crazy Loomis, William Victor Scott, Heavy Systems Inc., Bundy Fragmore, Monk Island, Olaf Hope, Hermsky, Alien Raider, Dave Velociraptor, Calvert, Lane Denson, Daniel Williams, Luke Hudson Bomb, Six the Bass for a winner, Soul Incisor, Tech Mage Jurgen, Mr. Cola, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Dennington, Zorg Love, Reflection, Simon Edge, Captain Crispy, Kilobats and Kathy, Gary, Heather, Free Lunch, Kate Fox, Stephen Pickford, Cameron Armstrong, Andy Jones, Lobsterminated, 10-minute Amiga Retrocast, Bernard Quinn, RMC, Tim Drew, Joseph Harrison, Kyler, Rob O'Hara, Matthew Larimore, Andy Craig, Sean Zobark, Ben, Roland Berg, Andrew Bond. Zombie, Little Don, Delicate Bob, Chico, Delever, Lord, John Marshall, Matthew Barrow, Ricky DeRoche, Creepy, That Boy, Vegas CDC, The Slow Norris, Stepford, Sir Gordon Mortensen, Edvin Helen, Christopher Hassel, Chris Folds, Laura Giroux, Graham, Bebke, Adam Batters, B. O'Brien's, Retro and Vintage, Gary Hucker, Paul, Bossman Harrington, Duncan Styles, here from Crypt, Josh Nad, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warren's, Pixels at Dawn, and Kjellbjorn Barman.
All right.
Did you run out of music there at the end?
A little bit.
I thought you're freestyling.
Well, I do. It's both.
Is that what it was? Man.
It's a both and. So, and of course, Aaron, we can't let an episode go by without recognizing our awesome Twitch subscribers. We do record the show every week on Friday at twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming. And we thank all of our subscribers over there that like to watch us live, including Oil of Hope, Gunner Warhorse, Eeyore4077, Beach Bum 7, Blue Train, Wing Chun Wolf, Scumboy, Thurso Bard, Texas Foosballer, Back to 8-Bit with Ermsky, Explorer, John Marshall 3, Low Jellyfish, Da Krabs MTG, Monza Mess, Jigglebox, Bitsuyama, Amiga Live, Pakotake, RetroRewind.ca, Matt Dufort, Real Retro Dude, Blipblop, Pishbot, Orom, Twilight Zoner, Uber Scuba Diver, Buck Owens, Lumin808, Frodo NL, Gary Heather, Am I Steph, Great Al G, and Joss80. Thank you guys so much for your support.
A healthy output there. Very nice. Thank you.
All right, Aaron, it's time. What are we going to do next week?
Let's find out.
Alarm Albert, can we like what we like, Mr. Chip?
One more time. What I meant to do was this. Oh, wasted dreams and wasted nights. Remember Freddie Fender? No? He used to play at Camden Park all the time.
Really?
Yeah. He's a Grammy winner. Freddie Fender?
They had live music at Camden Park?
Tons. Oh, yeah, there's a game.
What are we doing here?
Wasted Dreams.
Wasted Dreams.
It's a CD game, Boat.
Pixel sent us this message. I remember. It's all coming back to me. This may be the first CD-only game that we've done on Amigos.
Seems like a good way to go broke, Boat. You know, let's see, no one's got a CD-ROM. What could go wrong?
Listen, if everybody, once this game comes out, the hype will be so much that everybody will own an Amiga CD player.
Is this a CD-TV game?
No, I think this is a CD, like you hook it up to your what did you hook up yours? Did anybody actually own a CD-ROM?
Doug's got one.
Well, Doug's got everything.
And remember, Dan.
There's that prototype.
Yeah.
The CD-1200 thing.
Listen, this is going to take some, what I like to call some good old-fashioned deep digging. I'm going to get in there.
All right.
I'm going to flesh this sucker out, and then we'll see if it's any good.
Yeah.
I bet it's not.
We'll see. Well, guys, thanks as always for watching. We will see you next week. Until then,
adios.